been summoned to the Nakuru DCI headquarters following the publication of COVID-19 status at the Lanet Barracks. This comes as Secretary General of the Nakuru branch of the Kenya Union of Journalists, Kioko Kivandi, and the duo's lawyer Ngetich Kipkoech condemned the summons.
Most Kenyans retreat to their homes for fear of contracting the dreaded coronavirus. The Fourth Estate remains the only channel of information. The messengers of information have, however, been victims of police brutality and general attempts to clamp their freedom. Two writers of the Standard newspaper, Julius Chepkwonyi and Daniel Chege, are the latest to find themselves on the warpath with security apparatus. The two have been summoned to the Nakuru DCI headquarters following a story they published on the COVID-19 status at the Lanet Barracks.
They don't have an opportunity to gag the media. They don't have an opportunity to trample on the rights of Kenyans to have and to enjoy freedom of the press. And of course, more importantly, freedom of information.
The moment security agencies start asking journalists about their sources, then they are they're getting into a space that is not familiar to them. The moment a journalist publishes a story through whatever media, the media platform that they use, the employer, okay, it ceases to be their responsibility. It becomes the responsibility of the publication.
On the first day of the curfew implementation, journalists in Mombasa were clobbered by GSU officers in full glare of cameras. During the same week, two journalists were arrested in Eldoret on suspicion of inciting residents to demonstrate, but no charges were preferred against them.
I must say this is completely regrettable, and I would be urging the Inspector General of Police and the DCI to reconsider summoning journalists during this time. We saw a journalist who was being beaten at the coast the other time when curfew was being enforced for the very first time. We've seen incidences of journalists being summoned in Eldoret, and now it's Julius Chepkwonyi. I must say the constitution of this country has not been suspended.
As a regulator of the Media Council of Kenya has been urged to ensure that journalists' rights are upheld. Alan Ochanda, KTN News.
All right, following that report by Alan Ochanda on the two Standard newspaper journalists who have been summoned to reveal their sources of information, we just want to cross live to Nakuru right now, talk to Alan Ochanda and get the latest update on this particular story on media infringement. Alan Ochanda, very good morning to you. Now, there has been a spate of intimidation on journalists since the outbreak of the coronavirus, this being the latest. What exactly should we know about this?
Well, Jesse, good morning to you. Yes, indeed, as you've mentioned, is that there is a worrying trend. This is like a spate of an unprecedented terror being unleashed on journalists, but actually disguised as just protecting sensitive information from leaking to the public. But remember that yesterday, we had two journalists who are writers of the Standard newspaper, that is Julius Chepkwonyi and Daniel Chege, who have now been summoned to these DCI headquarters here in Nakuru, that we are now standing here. Remember that they are already inside with their lawyer, Ngetich Kipkoech, and of course the Bureau Chief of Nakuru Standard, of the Nakuru Standard Bureau, that is Alex Kiprotich. They are already inside where they are meeting. They have honored the summonses here. And so we are expecting that when they come out, they may be telling us what the preferred charges that have been preferred against them. But remember that we also talked to the Kenya Union of Journalists Secretary General of Nakuru branch, that is Kioko Kivandi, who talked to us yesterday, and he was expressing dissatisfaction, of course, displeasure with the kind of treatment that is now being meted on journalists. Remember that it's not only the two Standard journalists, but remember that some few weeks ago we had a journalist whose recorder, a radio journalist whose recorder was actually crushed in Njoro when we were covering the Egerton University students demonstration. We also had a situation in Mombasa where a journalist was actually clobbered in the full glare of cameras by a GSU officer. And also remember that in Eldoret last week, there was two journalists who were arrested and no charges were preferred against them. And so let me just engage the KUJ Secretary General of Nakuru branch, Kioko Kilavandi. Maybe Tell us, how do you feel, because you've been in this industry for long, and remember that during this COVID-19 coverage, many families, many Kenyans are now retreating back to their homes, and they expect that the fourth estate will be actually furnishing them with information real time. But you can see that there is now a pattern, a worrying trend, where journalists are now being targeted by the security agencies. What is your take on this?
Thank you so much, Ochanda. I actually like the way you began, this introduction, by referring to it as, or by looking at it as terror. It's actually some kind of terror, because when you look at it, when security agents target journalists in their work, at the end of the day, you feel like it's like they are picking journalists as victims, and therefore they are demanding some kind of a ransom from the media houses, and therefore what usually happens at the end is that ransom will actually be affected in terms of being compliant on matters to do with editorial decisions and so on and so forth. So, and like you put it, it's actually very, very worrying, because journalists get their license or their justification from public interest. So when you target them as individuals, then you are actually harming public interest. Yes.
Yesterday we were not talking, you were saying that once a journalist has actually written his or her story, it's been published and it's actually passed through all the channels, it's been given a clean bill of health as a story that is quite balanced, and so it ceases being a story attached to the journalist, but now to the media house. And we've seen these media houses, all of them may be having the legal departments, and of course the editors, these are qualified individuals who have actually ensured that the story is actually a balanced story. And in this case, the two journalists were actually summoned here because of a story that they published in relation to the COVID-19 status at the Lanat Barracks. And remember that now that story has caused ripples in the security apparatus, and these are the very agents that we must be working together with. But we can see that it's now landing them in hot soup. Maybe such a story, is it quite sensitive? Because remember that, of course, these are barracks, an army barracks, but is it quite sensitive because these are a health story?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Let me first of all start, reiterating what I said yesterday. Yeah, is the concept, okay. That concept of liability, the personal liability to a story, like I say, yes, that belongs to the media house, not the journalist. And again, whether that story as it was is a question of security or whatever, it should be judged on matters of public interest. It does not, yes.